Hey guys, bit of a different location than you're probably used to from my reviews. Usually I do these in the car, and I'm sorry this review is late, but I have been on family vacation. This is our usual week during the summer we go on vacation, so I didn't have time to see this when it premiered Thursday, and finally saw it tonight. So sorry for the delay. I'm sorry for the location change, but and I've just been busy with my new job, so I'm living that post-graduation life right now, and it's a bit of an adjustment. But I'll still try to get videos to you guys as much as I can. But anyway, here's my video review for Thor: Love and Thunder. I was very excited for this movie, not just because it's a Marvel movie, and I try to get excited for most of them. But I was very excited for this one because I was a huge fan of Thor Ragnarok, and I thought that movie was great. And I thought that movie not only was hilarious, but it was also had a lot of cool Thor moments, especially with the action sequences. I like the story of Ragnarok pretty good. And I thought it was just a really fun time. I thought Taika Waititi did a great job with Ragnarok. Now we get to Thor: Love and Thunder, and Taika Waititi was given a lot more free range with this movie. He wrote the script, unlike the first one, which was written by different people. He wrote the story for this movie, he wrote the screenplay, he directed it, produced it, all that good stuff. And of course, he's back as Korg once again. But with this one, Marvel was not really... Marvel didn't control this movie as much as they probably did with Ragnarok, and that excited me a lot more with this one because I thought it meant we were going to get more Taika Waititi goodness. And we just saw what he could do without Marvel's treatment with Jojo Rabbit, which was fantastic in my opinion. Not only was that movie funny, but it managed to be emotional in many moments and still deliver a satisfying narrative. And, it had a lot of great satire. But after seeing Thor: Love and Thunder, and of course, I didn't see this last week when it premiered. So I was reading the reviews for this movie before I saw it, and a lot of people saw it before I did, and it did worry me quite a bit because I heard it wasn't nearly as good as Ragnarok was, and I heard the comedy was really weak compared to what Ragnarok brought us. And seeing this movie, I have to agree pretty fairly. I was not into this movie as much as I wanted to at all. I thought this movie was so unbalanced when it came to comedy, when it came to story, and when it came to character development. Not that this movie didn't try with a lot of it. This movie tries too hard, in my opinion. It tried way too much to be funny. It tried too hard to be... Taika Waititi, I think, got too much creative control with this movie, and I feel like he put... I love when directors are given creative control with, especially with a big blockbuster like this. I want directors to put their own style into something as much as they can, but when you put too much into it, I think it can really create an unbalanced and messy film, and that's unfortunately what we got with Thor: Love and Thunder. I thought the comedy in this movie gets so annoying sometimes, and I thought Ragnarok was a really funny movie, and this one, it had some funny moments for sure, but it went so hard into it this time, and it just created something that really got on my nerves. The worst offender, and I don't want to spoil too much with this, is probably, and if you've seen the movie, you know about this, the screaming goats. The screaming goats in this movie. that is probably the best example of what I'm talking about with this movie, that they just went too far with this movie. They went too far with the comedy, and the screaming goats in this movie are the biggest offender of that, because that is a joke that they hammer in about 20 times, and it just gets less and less funny the more they do it. And apparently, I guess Taika Waititi saw that old video of that screaming goat from like years and years ago. Like, that thing is like more than a decade old at this point, and I guess they saw that and like, hey, let's put this into this movie a lot of times. And oh my god, the first couple times it got a decent chuckle out of me. The more times they did it, the more I felt groans. The more I could hear groans in the audience, like, are we really doing this many times? It is getting super old at this point. And yeah, not just the screaming goats, but a lot of the dialogue in this movie tries so hard to be funny, and a lot of the times it's just cringeworthy. And I don't have any real examples, because there's a lot of really bad comedic dialogue in this movie and the biggest problem with it, I don't have a problem with a movie being fun. Comedy is kind of those things where like it gets where people let things. What am I trying to say? Comedy is one of those things where people excuse a bad movie just because it's a comedy. And I see this all the time with Adam Sandler movies, with all these different types of bad comedies, and the main defense I hear from it is that it's a comedy. You're not supposed to take it seriously. And I disagree hard with that statement, because a comedy can be extremely well written. It can be extremely well put together and produced. And just because something is a comedy does not give you an excuse to be cringy and overblown with it. And this movie unfortunately falls into that trap where it seemed like every time they got slightly serious, they had to undercut it with something dumb or something that completely undercuts it emotionally and dramatically. And I'll say some nice things about the movie. There are some things that did catch me off guard and were actually really good surprises that weren't given away by the trailers. And I think the more serious parts of this movie are the things I like the most about this movie. The things that I actually got a little bit invested in. And one of those things is, something to do with a major character, and I was extremely taken back, like, oh my god, they're actually going in this direction. This might actually be pretty powerful. The problem is, and another thing I really liked about this movie for the most part was Christian Bale in this movie is amazing. His performance is so good. Like, if they had just let him do what he wanted the entire time, and I'm pretty sure they just let him, whenever he was on screen, just do whatever you want and go full out with this character, because he plays the villain Gore the God Butcher, and he has a really great backstory. You really do get why he is doing the things he's doing, and Christian Bale is clearly having the time of his life as this villain. And I really wish they spent more time with that, because they unfortunately spend the majority of this movie telling stupid, bad jokes. And it's unfortunate because there's a really good movie trying to get out of this less than stellar movie. And I really wish that a few more passes at the script would have taken out so many of the unnecessary jokes, so many of the cringeworthy jokes. And unfortunately, a lot of this movie is pretty cringeworthy. And I don't think any less of Taika Waititi. I don't think less of Taika Waititi as a filmmaker coming out of this, because he is extremely talented. He has so much goodness in him as a filmmaker. I mean, coming out of Jojo Rabbit and The Hunt for the Wilder People and some of the other stuff he's made, What We Do in the Shadows. I love all those movies. I don't think any less of him coming out of this. I just think he was given too much. He had too much of a hand at the wheel. I think someone should have grabbed him by the shoulder and just said, you're going a little bit too on the nose with this. And there's too much of that in this movie. And I think it really, no pun intended, butchers the experience of watching this. And I felt like there was a really good opportunity with this movie that I don't think was fully realized. And too much of it was spent on something that didn't really pan out the way I think it could have. And the actors in this movie are doing, for the most part, a really good job with the material they're given. Chris Hemsworth is still a great Thor. I love him as Thor. I don't want him to stop playing this character. I think he's doing a fabulous job still. Like I said, Christian Bale's great. I love Tessa Thompson, even though she's not given that much to do in this movie, and that was another disappointment with it. Natalie Portman, I think, was better in this movie than she was in the first two Thors, because I didn't really like her in the first two Thors, and I think that's part of the reason why I wasn't as invested with this movie as I wanted to, because they do stuff with her in this movie that is emotionally challenging for sure, but I think they didn't spend enough time with it. They, like I said, with Gore the God Butcher, they didn't spend enough time with him, and they don't, unfortunately, spend enough time with her and this plot device they give her, and the reason why she becomes this Lady Thor, the Mighty Thor. And I really wish they spent more time with it, but unfortunately they don't, and there's just not enough focus, and there's too much emphasis on bad comedy with this, and Marvel needs to stop. They need to settle down with this. The people who have watched these movies since the original Iron Man, I was 8 years old when Iron Man came out, and I saw that in the theater, and I've seen all these other Marvel movies in the theater, and I've grown up with these movies. I really have, and I've loved watching these movies. I love watching them grow, and I love watching the first three phases. This latest phase 4, is not cutting it. It's just not. I've liked a lot of the content we've gotten. I thought Multiverse of Madness was really fun. I enjoyed that Sam Raimi was given more free reign with it, but other than that, like they haven't been doing that great a job with this phase, and I really hope they improve things going forward. Yeah, it's just, and I need to tell you, this movie looks really ugly. Like, visually speaking, cinematography speaking, and visual effects speaking, this movie looks really bad for the first half of it. And I don't know why, because Ragnarok looked fine for the most part. This movie looks ugly. It looks visually unappealing, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that the VFX are super rushed in this. I don't know how much time they spent with this, but Marvel has been rushing their visual effects people for years, and it's getting to a point where they don't even want to work with Marvel anymore. And I don't blame them, because, I mean, look at the effects. Some of the effects in this movie are awful, and it's really unfortunate, because I feel so bad for the VFX companies that are working with them, because they must be so tired and so stressed, and they must be really hungry to get to work with someone who won't torture them during their during their collaboration with them. Yeah, but the second half of the movie actually is where things got a little bit better for me. The second half of this movie saved this movie from becoming a really bad movie, to be perfectly honest. And the second half of this movie is where things get more visually interesting, especially with Gore the God Butcher's planet, which is all black and white, except for the few fragments of color you see, like in Christian Bale's eyes. You see this yellow glow coming from his eyes, and the brief flashes of blue coming from Thor's hammer and Stormbreaker. That was really well done. I wanted more of that and less of what we got in the first half of this movie. Yeah, I was not terribly impressed with this movie, like a lot of people are. I was very let down by how much this movie tries to be comedic, and unfortunately, a lot of it did not work for me, and I thought it was just too much. I thought it was just way too much. So, yeah, there's a lot of people who were not happy with this movie, and I totally see why. Some people are having fun with it, and if you're having fun with this movie, then all the power to you. It's just, this is not the worst Thor movie in my opinion. Thor: The Dark World is still probably the worst. That movie was just flat out boring. That's probably my least favorite Marvel movie still to this day. This movie had moments of goodness in it, but not enough to make it a satisfying whole. But I still had fun with the movie in parts, so I'm not going to give this movie a full negative review. I'm going to give this movie a 5.5 out of 10. It's really unfortunate because I was really excited for this movie, but they kind of dropped the ball, to be perfectly honest. So that's my review for Thor: Love and Thunder. And I'll do a spoiler review probably later on. Yeah, look forward to that. I'm sorry for the change in location, and probably the audio doesn't sound nearly as good. But I hope you still enjoyed my review, and I'll see you guys later.